The night the world fell silent for Amelia was the same night she said no to Daniel Hart. Back then, he wasn't the man he would later become, the billionaire whose name graced every skyline and business magazine cover. He was just Daniel, the quiet young architect who believed in building dreams, not buying them. And Amelia, with her soft eyes and gentle smile, believed in him more than he believed in himself. They met in a small bookstore tucked between two coffee shops, where Daniel spent evenings sketching blueprints in the margins of his notebooks. Amelia was a teacher then, coming in for the warmth of old paper and the peace she couldn't find anywhere else. Their connection wasn't loud, it was quiet, patient, and real. For 3 years, they loved each other in the kind of way people write novels about. Until one rainy evening, Daniel knelt in the middle of their favorite bridge, holding a simple silver ring. He wasn't rich, not yet. He had plans and promises, but Amelia's family, especially her mother, had plans of their own. "You can't live on love, Amelia," her mother said that night, her voice sharp, her pearls gleaming under the chandelier. "You need stability, a man who can provide, not one chasing dreams." And so, with trembling hands and a heart that didn't stop aching for months, Amelia gave the ring back. She remembered how Daniel looked at her, no anger, no blame, just quiet understanding that hurt more than shouting ever could. "I hope you find what you're looking for," he said softly. "And if you ever don't, you'll know where to find me." Years passed. Amelia married someone her family approved of, a successful banker named Richard. The kind of man who looked perfect on paper, who smiled in photographs, but never really saw her. Their life together was like living in a glass house, beautiful, polished, and painfully fragile. By the time she turned 35, Amelia had learned that money could buy silence, but never peace. She filled her days with work at the local school, teaching children who reminded her what innocence looked like. In the evenings, she'd sit by the window, tracing the outlines of the city lights and wondering where Daniel was. Sometimes she'd hear his name, Daniel Hart, founder of Hart Industries, the youngest billionaire architect in New York, and her chest would tighten. She'd change the channel, pretending the world hadn't turned him into everything her mother once said she needed. Then one quiet autumn afternoon, everything changed. The school was hosting a charity renovation project. A wealthy donor had offered to redesign the playground for underprivileged kids. Amelia didn't pay much attention to the name on the documents until the day the black car arrived. It was sleek and understated, the kind of car you'd expect from someone who didn't need to prove anything anymore. The driver stepped out first, opening the back door. Amelia was standing near the playground fence, clipboard in hand, when she saw him. Daniel. He was taller now, sharper around the edges, his suit perfectly cut, his hair streaked with the faintest touch of gray. But his eyes, they were the same steady, warm, and devastatingly kind. For a moment, she couldn't move. The laughter of children blurred into the background. The sound of the wind faded. It was as if time had paused just for them. He smiled, a soft, knowing smile. "Hello, Amelia." Her lips parted, but no words came out. She managed a quiet, "Daniel, I didn't know." "That I'd still remember?" he interrupted gently, a playful glint in his eyes. "I told you once, if you ever didn't find what you were looking for, you'd know where to find me." She looked down, clutching the clipboard tighter. "It's been years. You've done well for yourself." "So have you," he said. You're still teaching? She nodded. It's what I love. He smiled faintly. That's why I chose this school. I wanted the project to mean something. There was a silence between them, not uncomfortable, but heavy with all the words they hadn't said in years. She wanted to ask him if he was married, if he'd moved on, if he ever forgave her, but she couldn't bring herself to. Instead, he walked beside her as she showed him around, discussing plans and budgets and timelines. Every word felt safe, but every glance felt dangerous. When the meeting ended, Daniel lingered. The sun had dipped behind the buildings, casting long shadows over the playground. Children's laughter echoed faintly in the distance. I should go, Amelia said softly. Amelia, he said, and she froze. There was something in his voice, something raw, unguarded. Do you ever think about that night? She turned, her eyes meeting his. Every day. He exhaled slowly, almost as if he'd been holding that breath for years. Then maybe it's time we stop pretending the past doesn't matter. For the first time in years, Amelia felt something she hadn't dared to feel hope. The kind that came quietly, without promises or conditions. But as she watched Daniel walk back to his car, her heart whispered the one truth she couldn't ignore. Time changes people, but it never erases what's meant to be. That night, Amelia sat by her window again, just like she used to. Only this time she didn't trace the city lights. She watched one far in the distance flicker brighter than the rest, and wondered if Daniel was doing the same. Days turned into weeks, and Daniel became a regular presence at the school. What began as formal visits for the playground renovation slowly turned into quiet, unspoken moments of familiarity. Morning coffees in the teacher's lounge, shared laughter over paint colors, the kind of glances that said more than words ever could. For the children, he was just Mr. Hart, the kind man who listened to their stories and fixed broken swings. But for Amelia, he was everything she'd tried to forget, and everything she still felt. One evening, as the sky turned gold with the setting sun, Amelia stayed late to finish grading papers. She didn't hear the footsteps behind her until a soft voice said, "You still stay late, don't you?" She turned to see Daniel standing in the doorway, holding 2 cups of coffee. I remember you used to say the world feels quieter after everyone's gone, he added. She smiled faintly. Some things never change. He handed her the cup. Some things do. They sat by the window the same way they used to years ago in that tiny bookstore. The air was thick with nostalgia, and the kind of silence that only 2 people who have loved deeply can share. Why did you come back, Daniel? She finally asked. He looked out the window before meeting her gaze. Because I never stopped loving you, Amelia. Success doesn't fill the spaces left by what truly mattered. I had everything: money, power, freedom, but none of it felt like home. Her eyes glistened. And now? Now I want to rebuild what I lost, even if all we can have is forgiveness. Tears slipped down her cheek, soft and quiet. You don't need my forgiveness. You need to let go. He shook his head. Maybe I came back, not to be forgiven, but to remind you that love never really ends. It just waits. Outside, rain began to fall, gentle and rhythmic, the same way it did the night she had said no. Amelia stood, walking to the door. For a moment, Daniel thought she was leaving, but instead, she turned the lock, facing him with trembling hands. I waited too, she whispered. He rose slowly, his eyes never leaving hers. When he reached her, she could feel his heartbeat steady, warm, familiar. This time there was no silver ring, No audience, no promises to keep or break. Just two people who had walked through years of silence to find their way back home. And when Daniel finally whispered, "Can I start over?" Amelia smiled through her tears and said, "You never really left." Outside, the rain washed the streets clean, and for the first time in years, Amelia didn't feel the ache of regret, only the quiet peace of something found again. That night, two lights flickered across the city, one from her window, one from his burning softly, steadily, as if they'd been waiting for this moment all along.